Today, we're diving into a true classic of software engineering, the Mythical Man-Month. But we're not just doing a book report. We're going to build a modern playbook for a problem that is absolutely timeless. How do you keep a massive, complex project from flying off the rails? Or to put it simply, how do you successfully pass the word?
You know, President Truman just hit the nail on the head with this one. It's the core challenge of leadership, isn't it? You can have this incredible vision, you can give all the right orders, but how do you make sure that vision actually comes to life the way you imagined it? That gap, right there between the vision and the execution, that's what we're tackling.
And this leads us to the million-dollar question from the book. I mean, just picture this for a second. You've got 10 brilliant architects who share a single, perfect, coherent vision for a system. Now, how on earth do they keep that vision pure when 1,000 different people are all building little pieces of it? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to solve with our manager's playbook. So first up in the playbook, and this is the big one, the manual. And no, we're not talking about some dusty document nobody reads. Think of this as your blueprint. It is the absolute foundation for making sure everyone is building the exact same thing. So what exactly is this manual? Well, it's the external specification of the product. And that word external is key. It describes and prescribes every single detail of what the user sees and interacts with. It's the main tangible thing the architect produces. It draws the lines in the sand and sets the goals for everyone else. So, what makes a great manual? It's a real balancing act. First, it focuses on the what, not the how. This is huge because it gives your builders the freedom to be creative and solve problems. But that freedom needs sharp boundaries, which is why precision is way more important than lively, fun-to-read prose. Clarity is king. And to keep that vision clear, it has to be written by just one or two people to maintain a single, consistent voice. And maybe the most important part, and this sounds a little weird, is that it's just as clear about what you are not building. That's how you stop good ideas from turning into distracting tangents. Okay, so you've got this blueprint, but a blueprint is only as good as the language it's written in, right? And this brings up a huge debate for any architect. Do you write it in simple, everyday language that anyone can pick up? Or do you use a super precise, formal notation that leaves zero room for error? And here is the classic dilemma. On one hand, you have prose, like plain English. It's great. Everyone gets it. It can explain the why behind the decisions. But it can be fuzzy, ambiguous. On the other hand, you have formal definitions. They are perfectly precise, almost like math, impossible to misinterpret. The downside? They're incredibly hard to read unless you're an expert. So you're stuck, right? Choose between easy to understand but easy to mess up, or impossible to mess up but hard to understand. So what's the answer? The book gives this wonderfully practical solution. You don't choose. You use both. But, and this is the critical part, one of them has to be declared the absolute standard, the single source of truth. The other one is just a helpful guide, a description that's derived from the official version. And I absolutely love this analogy from the text. It makes the point so perfectly. Never go to sea with two chronometers. Take one or three. Why? Because if you have two and they disagree, you have no way of knowing which one is right. You're lost. You have to have one single, undisputed source of truth for your project. All right, so we have our blueprint, our single source of truth. But, you know, projects are living, breathing things. They change and evolve. This brings us to the next part of the playbook. The human connection. We need processes to keep everybody aligned as things happen in real time. At the heart of this is the weekly Architects Conference. And let me tell you, this is not your typical boring status meeting. It is designed to be ruthlessly efficient. Everyone has to submit written proposals before the meeting, so you walk in already prepared. The meeting itself is for creative debate, not for reading. Afterwards, the best ideas get formalized. And this is so important. There's a tiebreaker. If people can't agree, the chief architect makes the final call. The whole system is designed to keep moving forward, to prevent gridlock. But what about those really big, thorny issues that you can't just solve in a one-hour meeting? Well, for those, the team had an incredible mechanism. They held annual, 2-week-long Supreme Court sessions. This was the place to hash out the major disagreements and clear out that backlog of tough problems that had piled up. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, a typical agenda for one of these sessions had around 200 items. 200. This was no casual retreat. It was a high-stakes, intense marathon designed to crush technical debt and get the entire project back into perfect alignment. Now let's look at something way more informal, but honestly, it's just as brilliant. The telephone log. It's so simple. An engineer building something has a question, so they call the architect. The architect records the question and the answer in a logbook. Then, every week, that log gets sent out to everybody. This simple little habit stops misunderstandings in their tracks and makes sure that important clarifications get to the entire team, not just the one person who asked. It's genius. Okay, we have the manual, we have the meetings, but how do you make it all, stick? How do you make sure people actually follow the plan? This brings us to the final and maybe the most critical part of our playbook, giving the manual some teeth. And this is where a fascinating political dynamic comes into play. Think about it. When you only have one team building the product, and what they built doesn't match the manual almost always loses. It's just cheaper and easier to change the document than to change the code. But watch what happens when you have multiple teams all building from the same manual. Suddenly, the tables are turned. Now it's way cheaper to fix the one team that got it wrong than to change the manual and force all the other teams to redo their work. And just like that, the manual wins. It has teeth. The final piece of the enforcement puzzle is the independent product test group. You have to think of these people as both the architect's best friend and their toughest critic. Their one and only job is to be the devil's advocate, to act like a customer and find every single flaw, every place where the product doesn't perfectly match the specification. They are the ones who keep everybody else honest. So let's pull all of this together. The biggest takeaway here, the thing you really have to get, is that these aren't just a bunch of separate, good ideas. They are interlocking parts of a complete system. They work together to create this incredibly robust framework for communication. And when we look at our playbook all at once, you can really see how the pieces fit. You have the blueprint, the manual to define the vision. You have the tools for precision, using both prose and formal definitions to make sure that vision is crystal clear. You have the human connection, the conferences and logs, to keep everyone aligned in real time. And finally, you have enforcement, to give that vision real authority, real teeth. So the crucial point is this. Success isn't about just picking your favorite tool from the list. It's about building the complete system. A system of communication, clarification, and verification. Each part supports the others to protect that fragile, all-important conceptual integrity of your project. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question for today. We live in an age of agile sprints, of distributed teams working all over the world, of constant change. In an environment like that, are these formal, structured principles from 50 years ago just old relics? Or are they actually more relevant and more necessary than they have ever been? It's something to think about.